one last topic here. This is, in fact, the last, the last class, the last lecture class of the semester. So, what I'm going to try to do here in the time that we have remaining is to provide a bit of a wrap up, summary of the information that we've covered. We've certainly traveled a long way from adding fractions, adding 1/4 and 1/8, and etc. And certainly, I've tried to build on stuff we've learned in earlier classes. So what I'm going to try to do is just provide a wrap up and a summary here. I'm open to, I'll have to move along smartly to get through this whole thing in the time we have available. So I will do my best. So we want to try to review key learning from our semester here. Right? We certainly, one of the first things we talked about was building codes. When do building codes apply? They certainly apply in new construction, and depending on the scope or nature of the renovation, they may apply as well. Certainly a change of occupancy or a sale of building, right? All those things may trigger requirements for a building code. We looked at model building codes, right? Remember the I codes, the IRC or the IBC. Those are developed by a national standards making organization, and that's because most units of government don't have the ability or the resources to develop their own building codes. They tend to adopt these model building codes. Right, so in that model building code, the code language, people try to use unambiguous language and something that's specific and enforceable, and not use may but use shall, right? And those model codes are updated on a regular basis. So the model code is made such that the people that are enforcing that code at the level of the local jurisdiction, at the Village of Oak Park or the City of Des Plaines or whatever, they can interpret what that code means in when they're actually doing their work. Sorry, I stumbled over my words there. Right, but that model code has to be adopted by the local jurisdiction. Right, so the model code has no force until it's formally adopted by a jurisdiction, and those jurisdictions often add local amendments. They add or subtract from that model code to things that are specific to that jurisdiction. Again, a good example in Oak Park, we have local amendments relating to some of the historic zones that we have in our village. So that would be an example of a local amendment. So again, here's our I codes, our IRC, International Residential Code, and our IBC, International Building Code. Oops, and this one, I don't know why this one, some things come out sideways. Sorry about that. But yeah, remember, along with the building code, we have the building permit, right? So that these things go together, the building code, the building permit, and the inspection process, right? They all go together to ensure that construction is done according to standards. We talked about zoning, right? Zoning is the process, the way that municipalities or jurisdictions divide up and they regulate land use, right? They say what types of land uses are permitted or prohibited in certain areas, and each of those zones is regulated as to its density, location, and the size or type of building that's permitted to be built in that area. Again, a little hard to see, but typically jurisdictions will have a zoning map, and they'll use some kind of abbreviation or a combination of a letter and a number to indicate what's acceptable in that or what's allowed in that particular area. Again, this is the Village of Oak Park zoning map. Sorry, it's a little small when I shrink it down and stick it on this slide. Again, on that zoning map, it'll typically be tied with some text that talks about the various characteristics. So again, some of those features of zoning, the zoning will regulate, minimum lot sizes, setbacks, right? How close the structure can be built to the property lines. It'll talk about the floor area ratio. Floor area ratio is how much built square footage there can be divided by the total square footage of the lot. There'll be height limitations and the types of buildings that can be allowed. So again, those are all things that are talked about in zoning. Right, here's our fractional ruler, right? This is one of the tools of the trade, certainly a tool of the trade. If you're in the field as a contractor or a tradesperson, right, you're going to hopefully know how to measure accurately using that ruler. Right, and the place where these two tools come together, right, here's the architect's scale and here's the fractional ruler. Remember, the scale that we see on our floor plan drawings or on our details, right? It'll say something like 1/8 of an inch equals 1 foot, or 1/4 of an inch equals 1 foot, right? So that's how the scale that the architect is using relates to the tape measure that the contractor or tradesperson has in the field. And remember, a bigger fraction equals larger scale. Right? We always talk about sections and details are typically drawn at a larger scale. So, 3/4 inch scale or 1 inch scale would be a larger scale than 1/4 or 1/8 inch. So when we're drawing or showing sections or details, those are typically drawn to a larger scale to allow additional detail to be shown. We spent a lot of time looking at materials, right? Again, just get it, people use the terms cement and concrete interchangeably, but those are two different things, right? Cement is a component of concrete, but cement is just one part of the concrete mix. We have water and sand and aggregates in there as well. Talked about putting steel and concrete together to make reinforced concrete, right? We spent a lot of time looking at drawings and looking at the slab of Sullivan, for instance, and looking at the number 4 rebar in that garage floor slab or in the footings, right? So we're putting steel and concrete together. Concrete has great compressive strength, right? Squeezing it together, but poor tensile strength. So when we put those materials together, we put steel in there that has good tensile strength. The combination of the two improves the properties of that concrete. Right, again, here's our types of forces: compression, squeezing something together; tension, trying to spread it apart; or shear, right? So again, we match up the rebar or the reinforcing bar with the concrete to improve the properties. Again, that rebar number is in 1/8 of an inch, so I think quite often we've seen number 4 rebar on a lot of our details, right? Number 4 is 4/8 of an inch or 1/2 an inch. A lot of different ways that masonry walls can be put together, right? Either a solid brick wall or a composite or brick and block, or a cavity wall or brick veneer. I think some of the structures we've looked at are brick veneer. So wood framing with a wythe of brick on the outside. And again, just some terminology here with masonry. So wythe has to do with the width or number of bricks from in to out, and coarse are the layers of brick that are piled up horizontally on top of each other. Okay, let's take 10-minute break or so. So we will start up again couple minutes after the hour. First of all, any questions? Again, I'm trying to wrap up and touch on the high points of things that we've talked about this semester. So if there's something that I'm not covering or a question that you still have, so then by all means, put it in the chat or raise your hand. So, okay, we'll see you in a few minutes.